Welcome back to Tamara Bowling Video Ball Reviews. Today we have the Storm DNA. If you want to see more of our content, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. If you like what we do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and check us out on Patreon. First impressions, the DNA name is apropos as it appears to be the source of life. Cheesy, fine, I'll grant you that, but it should give you more than a hint what we thought of it. Look, I'm going to get this surface issue out of the way. We haven't been finding the factory finishes usable even when it's a gritty finish from Storm lately. So to avoid wasting time, I simply did a full resurface with a hard 1000 and then 2000 Abralon or True Cut pads. At least this way I know how to replicate it. With that said, from the word go, the DNA simply looks spectacular. Even though I'm only sharing the house shot footage here, did test it on Sport Shot as well. It has a heavy roll for sure, not dissimilar to the Proton Physix or the Gem. It doesn't read too early, but it reads it early enough to start up before the end of the pattern. It has a round continuous motion that doesn't feel extremely forward like ASIMs typically do. And to be totally honest, my experience with balls that have this big of an intermediate differential isn't typically very good. They do roll heavy, but tend to be pretty limited in use case because of the heavier forward roll, so you usually can't open up the lane much. What I can say is that I didn't see any issues at all with the DNA. It gave me some miss room in and out. I started direct, as you saw, and it worked beautifully in the sort of outside friction. You're really blending it perfectly. The DNA is capable of strong angles, so I had to be careful of hitting it or slowing it down, as it will overhook if I did that. I left the occasional 7-pin, yeah, not unexpected. I was able to continue to migrate in to test out how deep I can go before it started to quit. I got into the 4th arrow, it still looked fine. Of course, this is tricky land for a lefty with lower revs like myself, but the ball made me feel like it would be possible if I wanted to be there. The Gem, for example, quit long before the 4th arrow. Again, somewhat surprising given the core shapes. Now, I haven't discussed the new EXO solid cover stack that's on this ball, but I really won't get into the technicals. What I can say is it works. The DNA really gives supreme mid-lane control while still being very capable down lane, and that's a great combination. It has to be said that after about 2 games worth of shots, the spot did appear to be burned up, and I started to get some flat hits, but still excellent pocket control. It's simply a sign of transition. Now here you can see it against the Proton Physix, which has been my mainstay strong define ball. It's in my personal bag, obviously, so I can subjectively say I love it. Objectively, it looks similar to the DNA, but with a touch longer and sharper move down lane. It's a bit more forward, I would say, but still having that heavy roll as you would expect. While they are slightly different, I see no issues at all replacing the Proton with the new DNA as my strong define ball. Alright, now here's Brian, and he also had an outstanding look with the Storm DNA, and really the most obvious thing we can see is the great mid-lane control. Brian is playing initially close to the friction line. Like I saw there, it was a great line to play as the DNA really blended the wet-dry very well. Honestly, if we didn't know how obnoxiously wet-dry this house pattern typically is, we would have thought this is a bit more tapered. The DNA just did so much business in the mid lane that it made the pattern just about feel tapered. And for bowlers like Brian, who are very accurate, it will feel like the world opened up. I mean, he doesn't need a ton of forgiveness in terms of miss room. So when a ball blends this way, it just really opens the pattern up. Add to that the mid lane read, a nice strong developing arc, and you get nice hit as well. So the DNA did a great job that he almost felt like he really didn't have to migrate, but he did a bit to see what happens. It still worked, albeit increasing the risk of 10 pins as you would expect when you open up the angles, because really the pattern isn't quite calling for a deeper move for Brian. But the shape of the reaction again gave him confidence that if the pattern did call for it, the DNA would work. Alright, and now here's Tyler testing the new DNA, and I'll just let you take a look, but essentially he gets the same mid lane control, a smooth, strong arc. It doesn't look jumpy, just very predictable, very high pocket control. You know, in this case, just to be transparent, this is drilled with like a 5.5-inch pin, designed to tame a bit of that huge motion he typically gets from these strong top-of-the-line balls, and hence the more direct trajectories, which he tends to like. The bottom line is that with the same control we had, it blends this typically very wet-dry pattern and makes it look easily playable. Tyler doesn't typically need balls this strong. The previous strongest ball he kept in his bag was the Rotogrip RST X1, and you know that really wasn't the strongest ball in Storm's lineup. It just gave him control. He just doesn't need things, you know, that big. He's probably a little bit rev dominant. So the layout was, you know, our way of calming the motion of the DNA to where it's something he could see using. He still likes the, you know, symmetric shapes of, and sort of like the idols, for example, fit him perfectly. But you know, that's you know, but ultimately no surprises here from the DNA. All right, final thoughts. In the end, the Storm DNA, in my mind, is truly a worthy release. I was thinking, you know, so what now? The Proton Physix has quietly slipped into the ether now, but the Supernova is still around. Rotogrip has the gem. 900 Global still has the reality, which isn't all that different from the DNA. Bottom line is you have some pretty strong options for the strong defined part of the bag, and the DNA is likely to stay in my bag. Doesn't hurt that physically looks so much like a phase 2, which is also still in my bag as a strong control. And it is a great complement to that ball as well.